Welcome to the Beach Brothers Show, Virginia business and politics. It's time to get beachy. Conrad is our political analyst and master chess instructor. So contact Conrad to appear on our show. Jose Cruz is our bilingual beach bully, our bilingual business bully. Contact him to feature your business on our show. I'm Seko Varner. I have consulting, entertainment, and credit repair services. I produce the Beach Brothers Show. You want to give a salute to Tally and Twine. It's time for you to have a high quality watch made in Virginia, made in Portsmouth, Virginia, from Tally and Twine. We want to say thanks to Southern Volkswagen Greenbrier for their great level of sponsorship. If you need a new car, you don't need to go far. Southern Volkswagen Greenbrier. And ladies, if you want your brows to say, wow, check out IamLitaWee.com. Microblading by IamLitaWee.com. I'm Seko Varner. I do credit fixes, tax resolutions. I lend private money to real estate investors, and we do debt consolidations. If you need any of these services, contact me as provided. And now it's time to get beachy on the Beach Brothers Show. All right, yes, it is time to get beachy on the Beach Brothers Show. Brother Conrad, we have a full spectrum with us today, a full house, if you will. So tell us, who do we have today with us?
Well, tonight the Beach Brothers Show is going to do one of those deep dives into the nation's foremost third party, the Libertarian Party. And I know my way around the Libertarian kitchen. I voted 3 consecutive Libertarian presidential candidates, Bob Barr in 08, Gary Johnson in 12 and 16, 2 consecutive Virginia Robert Sarvis races, 2013 for governor and 14 for Senate, 1 Cliff Hyra governor race in 2017, and 1 write-in for Alan Knapp in 2014's 2nd District Congress race. I'll note prominent Virginia Beach council members have an unofficial libertarian edge, Jessica Abbott and John Moss. Much of my political soul, if you will, and how I think government should treat people was formed in my libertarian years. I'm now a member of the Virginia Beach Democratic Committee. I run for office as a Democrat. I donate money to progressive candidates and causes, but I can't deny an affinity for times that the Democrat Party approaches planks that admittedly libertarians were first on, like peaceful foreign policy, scoffing the military-industrial complex, gay marriage, the drug war, immigration, and police reform. And as we look toward the next 80 years of American political theater and back at a tumultuous 2020, I say we should look at a strong third party's bold ideas and if they can help reform Virginia's and America's discourse. So tonight on, we have Jeremy Spike Cohen, who comes to us tonight from South Carolina. He started learning web design at 16, and he built a successful business. I know him as a proficient Facebook commentator long before the 2016 elections. In 2016, Mr. Cohen was diagnosed with MS. He sold his business and turned to full libertarian activism. He's also a podcaster on Muddied Waters Media. He's a great lover of dogs, and as he'd admit, his wonderful wife is much hotter than he is. Yeah. Spike went national in 2020 by running for the position of Vermin Supreme's vice president candidate at the Libertarian Convention. And came out of that, the National Party's nominee for vice president alongside Dr. Joe Jorgensen for president. On the national barnstorming tour, he made trips here in Virginia, meeting with activists like Aubrey Jones at Black Lives Matter 757, focusing on similar criminal justice and gun rights views. Joining us also is Mr. Dominic Dunbar. Mr. Dunbar is the Libertarian Party Virginia State Chair. He works with special projects and a database assistant within the Libertarian Party itself. A student of the University of North Florida, Mr. Dunbar lives in the Northern Virginia/DC area. And we also have on Dr. Jim Lark III, former chair of the Libertarian National Committee and active in Virginia Libertarian Actions. Dr. Lark is a professor in the Department of Systems and Information Engineering and the Applied Mathematics program at the University of Virginia. And I'll admit there's at least 3 to 4 more academic distinctions for Dr. Lark, but I'm going to skip those to save time. Truth be told, he has a very powerful mind. He's chairman of the board of directors of the Advocates for Self-Government, among other great organizations he's a part of on the goal of individual liberty. He's the Region 5 rep on the Libertarian National Committee and serves as the national campus coordinator, advising young libertarians. So, gentlemen, we thank you all for coming on the Beach Brothers Show to speak on libertarianism. And we'll begin with Mr. Spike. Spike, you and I have at times agreed and disagreed on topics for a pretty long time, the better part of about 10 years. But what got you into the arena of activism and then running for office?
Well, Conrad, first of all, thank you guys for inviting me to the show again. Conrad and Seko, thank you so much for having me on. And when it comes to libertarian activism, you kind of touched on what started it. You knew me as sort of a bit of a activism hobbyist for a few years until I was focused more on my businesses until I was diagnosed with MS. And it actually wasn't the MS that caused it. It was the doctor telling me that the goal of that really hit home just how short and fleeting our existence is here, and it really just it solidified to me that the most important thing moving forward, I had reached a point where I didn't need to work anymore, and that my focus was now on what my actual passion was, which was spreading a message of liberty to the American people. And so to that end, I got involved with activism on my shows on Muddy Waters Media, and then later to run for office when I heard over and over again from people that they wanted to see candidates at the top of the ticket who were able to not just be principled, but to present those principles in a way that connected with everyday Americans. And that's what I sought out to do in this election.
I really like the ring of that as a former candidate myself. Now, Mr. Dunbar and Dr. Lark, you've been observing libertarian politics for a little bit longer time than, say, Spike and myself. You've seen it grow as operations at the top of the Virginia Party and the National Party. What has the last 10 or so years been like for activism and growth with the party and the state party itself? I'll begin with Mr. Dunbar.
All right, yeah, and thanks for having me on. The state party has grown pretty steady, kind of slow for the past 10 years. To my estimation, I'm hoping that we're going to move a little bit faster coming up, but we've maintained a steady presence. We've tried to run state house candidates, half a dozen, 8, 10 candidates every time the state house comes up for election. And so, of course, we've had Robert Sarvis and Cliff Hyra and a few other really good statewide candidates who actually achieved a lot more than their vote total suggests. And the same with Spike, is what he's brought over the past year has really been a kind of energy that really is greater than the vote total he got. Suggests that over the past couple of elections, we had Gary Johnson as our presidential candidate, as you know, and he's great. He was a great candidate, and he represented us well, but his campaign staff was Republicans, and they ran a Republican-style campaign. And Spike and Joe Jorgensen this year, they ran a libertarian campaign. And their campaign, the idea behind their campaign was to grow the party. And I have to say that morale is high, and we're ready to move forward. We've got new people, lots of new people who've come on board, and we're looking forward to a growth spurt coming up. And I hope we can do the same, keep it going for 4 years and do it again.
Dr. Lark, your thoughts on the growth of Virginia libertarianism?
Well, one of the things I've been interested in for basically 35 years is actually building interest in the libertarian philosophy and by extension the Libertarian Party on college campuses. And I'm pleased to say that over the last 10 years, more and more I'm seeing young people at least understand what it is that the libertarian movement is all about, the idea of individual liberty and personal responsibility. And so I would agree with my colleagues, Mr. Cohen and Mr. Dunbar. I think we've seen a substantial degree of growth and acceptance. From the perspective of the Libertarian Party, we're still having some difficulty in that many people, because of the nature of our political system, many people still view voting libertarian as, well, if I vote for you guys, we're going to end up with what I really, really detest. And one of the biggest tasks that we as libertarians have is to get people to actually embrace voting for what they want, which in many cases is a libertarian candidate. And so I'm actually quite encouraged at what I've seen. More and more people are finally starting to say, I'm going to vote for what I want, which is liberty, personal responsibility. I'm going to vote for someone such as Mr. Cohen, who represents these ideas of liberty and responsibility. And so I'm quite encouraged.
Yeah, I think you should be encouraged.
And
I think you should be encouraged. Yeah, I think you should.
The Republican candidates.
Go ahead, Spike.
No, I was going to say,
Yeah.
I think that the Republican candidates help our cause. If you, for example, were voting for criminal justice, and that's why you voted for Joe Biden over Donald Trump, Joe Biden just got finished years ago telling all of the civil rights leaders that he met that basically he was going to do anything in terms of criminal justice. And that didn't like what he had to say about it, that could, quote unquote, go to hell. And that's really what happens when you vote for Republican A or Republican B. You get whatever promises for me to get your vote, and you get reminded that you.
Yeah, I think we just lost good brother Spike. But
I really hope he comes back.
he's coming back on. We see him coming back on, and when he's fully here, we'll make sure he's fully here. But I do want to ask this question, and I want to ask, I guess, DNIC Dunbar. That sounds like a rap name. DNIC.
Just Nick.
My name is DNIC. And Jim Lark. Okay, Jim Lark. Okay. All right. So I'm going to ask both Jim and DNIC, and it looks like Spike's back. You back, Spike?
Yeah, for now. We'll see how it goes.
We'll see. So what the libertarians bring to the table in a way to improve the business and social lives of Virginia communities. And I'm a stickler for policy over party. So I admit my own independent streak. I haven't necessarily called myself a libertarian, but I do like the efforts of the party to reform the whole process. I'm a determined voter, very determined voter. I'm strong in the community, and I help push organizations like the Hampton Roads Black Caucus. I'm a part of 200 Plus Men. I did run for the Virginia Beach School Board, and interestingly enough, I was really disappointed with my options when it came to the 2020 political candidate for president of the United States. So I really pushed hard for an independent candidate named, Jessica Simmons. Jade Simmons. Yeah. I pushed really hard for Jade Simmons. But when I walked in the booth, I actually voted for Joe Jorgensen and for Spike Cohen.
That's because Jade wasn't on the ballot, right?
Well, she was a registered write-in, so we could have written her in Virginia. And she did win a nice amount of votes here in the Hampton Roads area. But I thought about it and I said, you know what? I truly want more options. And if I was understanding everything correctly, if the libertarians would have received 5% or more of the vote, then they would be on the national stage in 2024. And so my thought was, I can help support the ability to have more options on the stage and some of the options I truly kind of believe in. So I was really happy I got a chance to vote for something I believed in, which is something Spike talked about, voting for something you truly believe in. But what do libertarians bring to the table?
Well, I appreciate your vote. We treat them all precious as though they're precious jewels.
Yes, thank you.
So we appreciate that, and darn for Jade, but yeah, it's hard. The 5% is the threshold that the Federal Elections Commission sets for receiving matching funds. Not likely that we would accept matching funds if they were offered, and we can go into the reasons for that. But it does put us in the next category. It puts us up the next category. Mm-hmm. In Virginia, the threshold is 10% to become a recognized major party and have primaries and stuff like the Democrats and Republicans do. And that is the highest in the nation, highest vote total in the nation. It's of the many things that Virginia got right in election laws, that is a standout. It is a standout embarrassment for our state. Really, every state has 2 sets of election laws. Some states have 3, but every state has at least 2, and there's a double standard. And the only reason they have a double standard is to give one side an advantage over the other. And I'd like to see us do election reform that makes it the same for everybody, so that we're all running on a single standard and on an equal footing.
Good stuff.
Yes.
Good stuff. So answer the question,
Dr. Lark. What does the party bring?
Oh, okay. Well, you did the 5% thing, and I got off on that. I get pissed. Anyways, what we bring individual choice, and that's what we're trying to bring. I mean, I'm not. We haven't really got there yet as far as electoral success. So, but what we're trying to bring is individual choice and voluntary action, because people really do know what's best for them. They really, for 99% of the population, they don't really need a bureaucrat telling them how to live their lives or what the best choice is in their situation, because everybody's different. Everybody's got a different situation. You got a different set of genes. You got a different community, and everybody's got a different place in this world. And to have one set of rules that applies to everybody is offensive, and it's inappropriate. And we like to bring. People want to do business. They should have the choice to do. All business is voluntary. You know, when you go into a business and you give them money and they give you dinner or whatever you're buying, you say thank you. They say thank you. Everybody's happy. So that's what business is about to me, is making everybody happy. And that's
we've seen. And we've seen the result of what happens when government thinks that they know better than us. And we don't have to look any further than the COVID-19 pandemic. For the first 6 to 8 weeks that the virus was here in the US, the FDA and the CDC did not allow testing for COVID. They didn't allow it. What do we keep being told? The most important thing is get tested often to make sure that we know who has it so that they can be contained. And instead, we had American companies that were making approved COVID-19 test kits, and they were having to sell all of them overseas because it was illegal for them to sell them here, and it was illegal for anyone to actually use them. And the only reason testing even started here was because of a handful of doctors around the country who illegally tested their patients and illegally released the results to the press. That was what led to the action in the first place, because the government wanted to pretend that it wasn't here. Ironically, it was the Chinese government's inaction that led to it spreading there for the same reason. They wanted to pretend it didn't exist. So we see what happens when a government decides that it can impose itself upon the will of the people instead of allowing them to do what they best see fit. If healthcare professionals had been allowed to simply do their job and test patients and save lives, we would not be facing the situation we are, either with this pandemic or the ridiculous anti-productive lockdowns that are actually making things worse in many cases. If we simply allow people to be free instead of having a unruly authority being imposed upon them by a bunch of bureaucrats and politicians who regularly demonstrate that they have no other idea what the hell they're doing in the first place, then we'll actually have a far better situation. The Libertarian Party, in a nutshell, if someone had to ask me, what do libertarians believe in a nutshell? We believe that people do best when they are most free. We believe that when someone tries to impose themselves upon you and rob from you and take from you, not only are they doing something that's morally wrong, because we all know it's bad to rob people and it's bad to hurt people and it's bad to take their things, but it doesn't work. If I can take from you and everyone else that's watching this whenever I see fit, I don't have to be a good steward of what I have, and I don't have to make good decisions because I can take more from you whenever I want to. And if we look at all of the abuses and the excesses that the American people are facing right now, it is as a direct result of a system created by Republicans and Democrats, whereby they presume the authority to take from you and order you around whenever you see fit. And there's no reason to think that we should get anything but bad outcomes from such an arrangement. The Libertarian Party recognizes that the best way for us to live is to dismantle these oppressive systems and take the power and the freedom and the money that has been stolen from the American people and put it back in your hands where it always damn well belonged.
Wow, he came back strong. Hey, hold on. We need to let that marinate for a moment. Just let that breathe. Let that breathe. Wow.
I wanted to give Dr. Lark a shot, and I'm like, he just brought the lightning.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna tone it down. I'll take it down for a moment.
Spike, I don't think you can tone it down. This is one of your Facebook posts. Body camera footage shows Columbus police officers pointing guns and tasing an ATF agent. When you post that type of stuff, you can't tone. I mean, you turn down for what, man? That's
well, and my caption there is when the gang unit inadvertently does its job correctly, and that's what happened.
Incredible. Okay. Take it away, Conrad, because I'm going to be laughing for a minute.
I just wanted to see if you want to jump in just a little bit there. I know we sort of zoomed a lot of that, Mr. Lark, but I wanted to give you a shot at the same question.
Well, we have fire and ice here. I guess I would represent ice. I think my distinguished colleagues have said it very well. The libertarian perspective is basically, to the extent government has any validity, it is to protect our rights. Government is not there to be your mommy and daddy. It's not there to get you to eat your vegetables. It's not there to take from one to give to another. Government is there for a very limited purpose, and that is to protect your rights. We of libertarian disposition, we in the Libertarian Party, we want to let you live your life your way as long as you don't violate the like rights of your neighbors. And as my colleagues have said, I think a society based on libertarian principles, governments that are bound by libertarian principles, are going to be healthier, wealthier, and wiser. And I think we offer a much better way of moving forward, one that recognizes the precious nature of every individual. And I think it's truly a beautiful, compelling vision. More and more people are starting to embrace that vision.
Speaking of embracing, I want to circle back to thanking Mr. Spike in his campaign this year to coming to the Old Dominion. You went to places like Newport News, you went to Richmond, you met with Hampton Roads, Aubrey Jones, and in alignment with Black Lives Matter movements, gun rights, social justice, all came together there. Now, I'm more progressive compared to my past, and I have an appreciation for individuals like Malcolm X, Huey Newton, Bobby Seale, Fred Hampton of the Black Panthers, because those are strong movements that sought a well-armed community of self-identity and determination.
Right.
Of course, I'll note Donald Trump's election totals went from 63 million in 2016 to 74 million in 2020, and he was able to get higher support in Black and Latino communities than previous Republicans have. Now, that fact is weird to me due to my opinion of Donald Trump, but that is what it is. I think especially in Black and Latino communities, there's less trust for government at all compared with white communities. I'd speculate it's possible for the Libertarian Party to pick up support from minority communities that wish to leave the Democrat Party due to lack of results in the drive for systemic change, and the Republican Party for its near zealous support for police states and wars and the environment and poor voter engagement. So you're the 2020 vice presidential candidate and a voice to many of these issues, as we just saw. Do you see a large opportunity for the Libertarian Party to grow within various minority communities?
Oh, absolutely, Conrad. And let's go back to what you were talking about. You said you're puzzled about the fact that Donald Trump actually got a greater share of Black and Latino votes than he did in 2016. I don't think they were voting for Donald Trump. I think they were voting against one of the architects of the militarized police state and his running mate, one of its most brutal enforcers. I think, honestly, you had a lot of voters who looked at Joe Biden and saw that he was the architect of the war on drugs. He was the architect of civil asset forfeiture, no-knock raids that led to the killing of Breonna Taylor, qualified immunity, which allows bad police officers to be able to infringe upon the lives, rights, and property of the people, disproportionately so against communities of color and other marginalized communities with near impunity. That is all, Joe Biden, you name a policy that you hate, and Joe Biden has either helped write it, helped sponsor it, helped pass it into law, or helped oversee its enforcement during his 8 years in the White House. You're talking about someone who is a unique example of everything bad to come out of the Democratic Party. And then they went and nominated the guy. And of course, a lot of people voted for Donald Trump because they didn't realize that there was another viable option. They didn't know that there was someone who wasn't Joe Biden or Donald Trump. And I think the reality is that, as libertarians, we can absolutely, as our prominence and name grows, we can absolutely seize upon that and get more votes from people across of all demographics across the political spectrum. But yes, especially those in minority and other marginalized communities. I mean, if we recognize as libertarians, if our message is that we recognize that the state, that a government that is out of control is often an agent of harm to the people, and if we recognize that communities of color and other marginalized communities are the most acutely affected by those abuses by government, then it would stand to reason that not only is our message inherently and disproportionately more likely to be accepted by these communities, but it is incumbent upon us to reach out to them in a way that we often have not in the past. So I absolutely believe that is a major part, that and
we lost him again.
No, I can see him. I think he stopped.
Oh, well.
Allow me to offer an addendum to Mr. Cohen's point. Don't forget that Kamala Harris was not exactly a model for freedom and liberty in terms of her previous roles in California. She also she shares many of the bad aspects that Joe Biden had, and so it's not just President-elect Biden. I think a lot of people in various communities saw that big government, the idea that government should be making decisions for us. I think more and more people are willing to say, I'm going to vote for something else, or I'm going to go for something else. Now, in some cases, unfortunately, again, they're not going to vote for what they want. They're not going to vote libertarian because they're afraid if they vote for what they want, they're going to end up with what they really dislike. So again, a big job for the Libertarian Party is to give people, first of all, first-rate candidates, and secondly, to encourage people to vote ultimately for what they want as opposed to voting defensively.
Would you ditto that opinion, Mr. Dunbar? Or did he drop off?
Yeah, I think we lost Mr. Dunbar. He'll be back.
Okay, well, I would be happy to ditto that because it's absolutely part of and it's actually by design that so many voters vote defensively or strategically. In other words, they're just voting against what they are more fearful of. But that's by design. Republicans and Democrats work together to create a good cop, bad cop routine where they play good cop.
Freezes on a really good
They're voting base, so they play the hero to their side.
It's not just the Democrats and Republicans play it that way. It's the electoral system itself, a plurality-based voting system, lends itself to gaming. So people are always trying to game the system. They vote for the lesser of two evils, and they manipulate that way. So a majority-based system would give everybody a better voice. The Democrats and Republicans, of course, wrote the laws, and they amended them increment by increment over the past 100 years, and bit by bit, they've passed laws that enhance their ability to get reelected and marginalize challengers. And so there's rally-based voting, there's the ballot access system, campaign finance, all of those things provide small handicaps to minority parties, minority voices, and ensure that the incumbents get reelected. That's why they're so hard to get rid of.
Interesting. Street Food Revolutionaries asks, what can small businesses and restaurants do to regain our rights and make a living? We are being systematically destroyed with these lockdowns. What are your thoughts, fellas? How would a libertarian administration address this situation?
I'd love to answer. I'm scared that I'm going to get cut off again. By the way, guys, we need to reschedule to have me on when I'm actually somewhere where I'll have a signal and be able to answer your questions, because I feel terrible about this. For those who don't know, I was supposed to be in an actual, like, where my studio is, but we got stuck in traffic, so that didn't happen. Anyway, so regarding the lockdowns, going back to, yes, there's my wife, who's much more attractive than me. Thank you.
I agree.
She's actually right. She's right here. There she is. There we go. There. That's what you wanted to see. That's what we all wanted. So anyway, when it comes to the lockdowns, because this is about me again. I may not be attractive, but people like me still, whatever. When it comes to the lockdowns, going back to why we're even facing the pandemic as badly as we are in the first place, the government did not allow healthcare workers to do their job. We didn't need this pandemic to tell us our healthcare system is a damn mess. It costs a fortune. There are people that die as a result of not being able to get proper, affordable care. And it's as a direct result of a system that was created for the benefit of a small handful of billionaire cronies at the direct expense of literally everyone else in this country. And this pandemic has exposed its weaknesses at its most crucial points. And that's a whole other subject that we can get into. As a result of this pandemic that happened as a result of bad government policy, they then turn around to shift the blame to you, not to them who created these bad policies that led to this pandemic to spiral out of control in the first place. No, it's your fault. You're the one that wanted to go and spend time with your family. You're the one that wanted to be able to operate your small business. You're the one that wanted to, be able to try to actually live your life and make ends meet. It's your fault. And so we're going to lock everything down. Unless you're Walmart, or unless you're Costco, or unless you're Target, or unless you're a major business, then you can stay open, and we'll do everything we can to accommodate you. And if you aren't able to stay open and you're a major company like an airline or a hotel company, then we'll hand you trillions of dollars in bailouts, and we'll just run it up in debt in the name of of people that haven't even been born yet. This is a system that allows us to have the worst poverty that we've ever had in this country since the Great Depression, while stock prices are at all-time highs. It is a system whereby the rest of us were given $1,200, told to stay home until further notice, while billionaire cronies that bought and paid for the politicians that are in office were given trillions of dollars in bailouts. And this was done in a stunning bipartisan manner by both Republicans and Democrats working together to make sure that the one thing that they always do together happens, which is to make sure that trillions of dollars are handed off to people who, if they never got a single penny in the rest of their life, they could continue to live their lifestyle perfectly fine. The rest of us, we can starve. That is what the system is. That is what these lockdowns are, and you will never see a change to it until we kick the people out of office that believe that they can control every single aspect of your lives, even as they actively ruin it.
That's why we want to rebook you.
If I may offer another, again, an addendum to Mr. Cohen's comment, I think that one thing that is really opening people's eyes are examples such as Governor Newsom in California showing up at the French Laundry for a very expensive dinner and being seen as, the laws do not apply to me. Sometimes it's the little things that actually open people's eyes to the problems that Mr. Dunbar and Mr. Cohen are suggesting. So I think that the hypocrisy of many of our elected officials is really resonating with people. They're now starting to say, why, if these government rules, these lockdowns are really so important for our health, why do we see government officials essentially flaunting them? So I think that we are at a very interesting time where people may finally see, not only do they see the iron fist of the state up close and personal, but they're starting to see very, very clearly that many of our elected officials seem to feel the rules apply to everyone except themselves.
That's exactly correct, Jim. Not only do they think that the rules don't apply to them, if they actually thought that these lockdowns were saving lives and protecting them, they wouldn't so flippantly flout them whenever they see fit, whenever they think no one's paying attention. And that's the reality of it. If they really thought they were keeping us safe, they would be following it to a T. They don't think this is keeping us safe. This is the same safety theater that they use to try to make us think that we're safe from crime or safe from terrorism or safe from everything else. They have imposed themselves upon us, robbed us of our livelihoods, robbed us of our freedom, robbed us of our power and decision-making ability, all to supposedly protect us from a virus that they allowed to spread out of control by not allowing healthcare workers to do their jobs. Now, they're pretending, they're engaging in what they always do, safety theater. Oh, you'll be safe so long as you wear a mask for the 7 steps from the front door of the restaurant until you sit down to have your meal. But then you're safe once you're sitting down to have your meal, but not after 10, or if there's alcohol being served, then it's unsafe again. Meanwhile, they go off to, expensive taxpayer paid trips to, Puerto Cana or Punta Cana and like all these other different places. And when they're told, well, why are you doing this? They go, oh, it's okay. We got tested and we're safe. Okay, well, can we get tested and be safe? Oh, we can't. We have to do everything that you say. Sounds to me like safety theater. It has nothing to do with protecting you. It's about making you feel safe and making sure that you know who's in control, and it ain't you.
Well, the great economist Benjamin Rogie used to ask the question, what is it that make alcohol and gambling such horrible vices that only the government can administer them?
Right, exactly.
Mr. Spike, I can tell you just parked. I mean, I know you had to go at a certain time. I'm just curious if you're, because you were delayed in traffic, if you wanted to go a little bit over, or if now is a good time to cut for tonight.
Unfortunately, I have to cut for tonight because I do have to actually go on to my next thing. But let's get in contact with me immediately after this because we're going to book and we'll rebook hopefully as soon as possible because I feel terrible about this. I have my studio all set up, but unfortunately I do have to go. But folks, before I do go, I leave you in very capable hands with Jim and DNIC, D-Nice as I'm going to call him from now on. I leave you with this. If you want to see a society in which you are treated equally under the law, regardless of your color, regardless of your social or financial situation, regardless of your sexual identity or your gender or anything else. If you want to see an end to the wars that are happening overseas and the genocides that are being sponsored by your tax dollars, if you want to see a healthcare system that has good, affordable access for everyone, that kicks the cronies out and puts the power back in the hands of you and your doctors, if you want an educational system that's decided by you and the teachers of your children instead of by some bureaucrat who's created a standardized testing system that has left most of the children behind. If you want to see a society that is not just freer, but safer and happier and healthier, and a future that is brighter for your children and their children than we could even imagine now, then there's only one way to do that. And that is to kick out the monsters that have created this mess of a system to the benefit of themselves and the cronies who put them in office, and to take that power and freedom and put it back in your hands where it always belonged. And that is a vote for the Libertarian Party. And I hope that you will join us. Thank you.
Golf clap to Mr. Spike.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. But seriously, Conrad, contact me. Let's book. We're rebooking, okay? Thank you, guys.
You got it. Hey, have a good one. I hope Mr. Nick and Dr. Jim, you guys have a little bit more time. We can go over a couple more questions.
Absolutely.
That's D-Nick. D-Nick.
All right. I'm never. I started using DNIC when I ran for student government in college. I was running for student government vice president, and several people afterwards told me that they didn't recognize that was me because the ballot said Dominic instead of Nick. They knew me as Nick. They didn't know me as Dominic, and so I started putting the D on there so that when I run for office again, people would be able to tell that was me because there's not that many DNICs out there. So it's really just a written thing.
All right. I'd like to roll in with we touched on Jade Simmons a little earlier in the show, and the Beach Brothers show in conjunction.
You can't say Jade Simmons without clapping.
Yeah.
You got to clap.
in conjunction with the Hampton Roads Black Caucus. We had her on, and in the middle of her campaign for president of the United States. And her independent candidate role was community-oriented. It was policy-oriented. She dismissed parties as themselves needed for improvement. And of course, that speaks for the uniqueness of 2020. Mr. Dunbar, Dr. Lark. Ms. Simmons is one of many who lent themselves as an option in 2020, and we're curious. How did the Libertarian Party of Virginia operate throughout 2020, and how did it set up its options for Virginia voters?
Well, I guess I'll start off.
Yes, sir.
2020 has been an interesting year. Of course, we tried to provide good quality candidates for as many Virginians as possible, starting at the presidential level and working down. Unfortunately, COVID has knocked a lot of our plans into a cocked hat. As a quote third party, one of the most important things that we have to do is to go out and meet people in the communities to try to explain why we feel they should trust us with their vote. And COVID simply made it very difficult for us to do a lot of the in-person campaigning that has always been our hallmark. And I'm hoping that life will return, I won't say to normal, I hope life will be a lot better after we come out of this. But I think that, unfortunately, COVID hurt us tremendously in terms of our ability to do real politics by coming to communities, by talking to people, both one-on-one and in terms of addressing community organizations. And I think it did hurt us. We still were able to get our message out because we have a lot of great people working very hard for us, including our presidential ticket. But I don't think there's any doubt that the extent to which many organizations simply could not have in-person events at which our candidates could go out and explain their ideas, I think it did hurt us.
Okay. Hey, in 2017,
I have to second that. One of the things I was really hoping to do this year was do a lot of tabling. I ran the table at the state fair. Back when we had a state fair, and we've run tables at county fairs, farmers markets, flea markets, you name it, where we like to go out. I like to go out and talk to people, and we haven't been able to do that. And the lack of events has really hurt us even getting on the ballot as well. The state requires us to collect 10,000 signatures to get a governor candidate on the ballot. And with no events, with no people congregating, we can't do it. If we work in front of grocery stores or get a table at a department store or something, we can't get a table. We can't get a table. The Girl Scouts can't get a table. Even the Girl Scouts have had to go online to sell cookies. So there's just no way to go out and talk to people. It has to all be online, and that's kind of unfortunate because people just there's a bunch of crazy people online, and who are you going to believe? So.
Good point. I think COVID and the COVID environment that we're in have really impacted most of our politics. I know Conrad and I did a really deep dive on the numbers, and we found that in most cases, a lot of the incumbents, unless you were horrible, a lot of the incumbents won. And it was because the people, choosing to rise up just were not able to get out and campaign.
Well, in the case of the libertarian perspective, for many people, unfortunately, the term libertarian is still somewhat unusual for them. And we are still in a position where we have to explain and promote our ideas. We have to give people an uncaricatured view of what we're all about. Individuality coupled with personal responsibility, allowing people to live their lives their way. And we simply don't have the financial resources to do mass market advertising the way, of course, Democrats and Republicans do. We still have to do it one-on-one, one-to-community organization type of campaigning. And so, it really does hurt candidates who have what is perceived to be a heterodox view. And that's just the hand we've been dealt. It's our job to go out and explain these ideas, to give people a reason why they should trust us. And again, COVID dealt us a bad hand this past year.
Speaking of
Yeah,
COVID,
it did. It did.
I wanna-
Before we do that, it's time to really shout out some people who make this possible. So, Conrad, tell us about that vehicle you drive, sir.
Well, I go to and fro in my 2017 Volkswagen Jetta, and I got that Volkswagen Jetta in Chesapeake, Virginia. I got it at Southern Volkswagen at 1248 South Military Highway. I want to make sure you get a car just as good, and in order to do that, because you are free, responsible peoples, make sure you go to 1248 South Military Highway, speak with Cynthia Rawlings and Charlie Roy, and get yourself a car and freely ride around.
Okay, good stuff. Good stuff. And I want to shout out Common Sense. So commonsenseforyou.org. If you go to commonsenseforyou.org, you're going to find a great selection of healthy health and beauty aids. Did you know that toothpaste isn't the best thing for your teeth? You know, herbal tooth powder is. It doesn't have the fluoride. That is not the best thing for your teeth. So if you're looking for liberty and you're looking for freedom, I'm assuming you're looking for health as well. So if you go to commonsenseforyou.org, you'll find healthy health and beauty aids that will allow your body to be as healthy as possible. I love their soaps. I love their bug oil. The bug oil, I use it in the summertime. Kept the mosquitoes off of me. The lavender sugar scrub cubes are fun. Me and the wifey love those. They have a lot of other great things. Hey, the goat milk soap is nice as well. They have some great products for you. So once again, go to commonsenseforyou.org. That's commonsenseforyou.org. And lastly, I'm Seko Varner. Of course, you know, I provide financing for real estate investors. This is a project that I just recently funded. This is the before picture. I can't wait to show you the after picture. This property was purchased for $33K. It needed $58,000 in rehab, and I was able to provide this investor with 90% of the acquisition and 100% of the rehab costs, and I'll do the same for you. So let's get back to speaking about the libertarian process, the libertarian ideas, the libertarian challenges, and libertarianism. Brother Conrad.
I want to sort of break into a slight alternate reality here. In 2017, Mr. Cliff Hyra received 1.07% of the Virginia governor vote. The winner, of course, was Democrat Ralph Northam. Unfortunately made himself the most disliked politician in the state because of his COVID-19 regulations. Let's break down what we might have seen if Cliff was our state's governor this year. Mr. Dunbar, Dr. Lark, what would you say you agree on with the state's executive authority so far? And what would you disagree with? And I'll begin with Mr. Dunbar.
Okay, well, thank you. I think Cliff did a great job for us. If I haven't really spoken to him about what he would do as governor, but I can tell you that that for most of us, we want to take action. The private sector took action long before the government did. The private sector was canceling events, canceling basketball games before the government ever got into it. I mean, businesses and private sector people who live in our communities want to be responsible, and they took action before the government did. The government came in with a heavy hand and said, you have to do it this way and that way, and maybe it was the right way and maybe it wasn't. I don't dispute that they had some authority quarantining disease ships is a tradition going back thousands of years. So they have some obligation, some authority to do quarantines, but it's been 9 months and the governor is still acting like a tyrant. And I have to ask the legislature, what the heck are you guys doing? Why is not the legislature stepping in? It's been 9 months. It's not an emergency anymore. Maybe for the first 30 days, if he had to step in and do something, possibly. I think the private sector was already doing more than the governor, But if he had to step in, but executive authority, executive overreach is way overdue.
Yes, I suppose my opinion is that with respect to what would be considered truly state property, the legislature and the governor do have authority to be able to mandate certain types of behavior on private property. It's just not, in my opinion, it's just not the business of government to tell people what they will do or what they won't do. I don't see any good reason, either medically or socially, for the sort of attacks, if you will, on the liberty of the people. For example, the curfew. I see no good reason why we should have a curfew, even under the best of circumstances, even giving government the benefit of the doubt with respect to their intentions. I think that the ability of government to regulate private contact is very, very limited, and unfortunately, the governor, I think, has vastly exceeded his powers.
Well, I would like to sort of circle back around to the idea of outreach. The Libertarian Party of Virginia is definitely looking to grow in the next few years. You guys are leading that effort. I would like to see that the party uptick its efforts on outreach. And for instance, I am a new member of the Hampton Roads, the Hampton Roads Black Caucus. And can an organization like that, and perhaps even the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, which our brother Jose is on, can the Libertarian Party outreach into organizations like that to seek a way to grow the party itself?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Real simple answer. Yes.
Short answer.
Yes. No.
Right.
I'm encouraging.
Okay.
Our candidates. We've got a half a dozen state house candidates that have already announced, and we're expecting more. We're in a recruiting phase for that right now, but I'm encouraging our candidates to shift their focus more towards criminal justice reform and outreach into minority communities where we haven't really had a presence before. We've been in the drug legalization community for a couple of decades. Drug legalization community is making great strides. The Democrats are now posturing themselves as though they started it. We've done a great outreach into the Second Amendment community. They know us pretty well. For some reason, the establishment Second Amendment groups always vote Republican. It's like they don't care how bad the Republican is. They don't care how many times they get betrayed. They're going to continue voting Republican. So I'm encouraging our candidates to quit wasting time with them, because I'm not giving up on Second Amendment. We're always going to be strong Second Amendment supporters, but to focus their efforts more on outreach to minority communities and soccer moms. Soccer moms, education is a big issue this year, and the parents are wondering what to do with their kids, and they don't have the freedom to make their own choices. Even with their own kids' education, they're being told what to do. We need some education freedom. So I'd like to see those two areas for us to focus on.
One thing you might want to keep in mind is that libertarians, by and large, don't look to politics as a way of dealing with the major problems of the human condition. Libertarians do not get involved in politics for their personal self-interest. I will tell you, this may surprise you, I hate politics. I'd much rather be discussing with you music or beer or basketball or beer or perhaps even beer, the things that give life joy. As you may have gathered, I like beer.
Okay, Kavanaugh.
Most libertarians involve themselves in politics out of a sense of civic duty. The best type of civic duty is, and that is to stand up for the ideas in which we believe. We don't get involved in politics for self-enrichment. It's something that's actually very costly to us. And I think that
We're
one
not
of the
making
biggest,
any money here.
well, when
Right, right.
when I was Libertarian Party national chair, it cost me, the technical term is, a frickin' fortune, because I had to spend an enormous amount of time. I'm involved in politics because I can't ask other people to stand up for my views on liberty and personal responsibility. And I mention this because you have to understand, when libertarians go out and basically stand for office, they're usually suffering a substantial burden by virtue of the time, effort, money, the blood and sweat and tears that they have to involve. We generally do not get the sort of benefits out of involvement in politics that your typical Republican and Democratic candidates realize. And so we face what I, as a statistician, would call a selection bias problem. In fact, it's actually amazing in many ways that we have as many good quality libertarian candidates as we do.
Speaking of the candidates themselves, I like the idea of looking forward again, and I like this one as we're looking ahead toward 2021 and 2022. They're the next election cycles in Virginia. So take it from me, you don't have to run just once. I ran in 2018 for city council here in Virginia Beach, and I only got 7,809 votes. Then I ran the next year because of another special election. 24,300 votes I got. This year in a general election, I ran again, 52,500 votes. I say there's momentum. And of course, I would like to be a legislator one day, be it in the city or the state or perhaps a congressional representative. But Mr. Dunbar and Dr. Lark, you're leading at the top of the state Libertarian Party. And of course, Spike's going to be a great future candidate as well, besides just this year. So we're curious, what are y'all's respective designs for the state party, the national party, candidates-wise for 2021 and 2022?
Well, as a state chair, as I said, I've been recruiting. I'm recruiting, helping recruit state house candidates. Where we do have, we would like to have some other statewide candidates, but the ballot access is just, especially with COVID, is just getting 10,000 signatures is pretty much impossible. And I can't ask our members to go out and waste their time and money on something that not very likely to succeed. So we're focus on reaching communities where we haven't had much inroad in the past, and try and build the party from there, and just really get a team together that works well together, so that we can build on that in coming cycles.
From a perspective of someone here in Virginia, I certainly would like to encourage libertarians to run for local office. I think that we have the greatest opportunity for purchase at the local, in the sense of getting elected and actually making changes. Actually, in many ways, getting libertarians to run for local office is more difficult than getting them to run for state and federal office, because in many cases, there are a lot of hard questions at the local level that reasonable people are going to differ about. And sometimes it's hard to get libertarians to be involved in local politics, because frankly, the questions are a lot more difficult in many ways than they are at the state and federal level. At the federal level, I don't have any particular favorites going forward toward 2024. I hope that we will have articulate candidates who can represent us well. My personal opinion, by the way, is to look at the presidential candidate as basically a way of getting people interested in the Libertarian Party, but we have to have candidates at the local and state level, and again at the congressional level, who can then run for office and actually in some cases be elected. I am encouraged more and more, though, that we're seeing people finally deciding that they want to vote for a candidate that they really believe in. And I think that we will see libertarian vote totals continue to go up, because more and more people are simply getting tired of voting defensively, voting strategically. They're tired of voting for something that they don't want. They want to vote for someone in whom they can believe, someone whom they can trust. So I tend to be pretty optimistic going forward.
I believe there would be good success if there was about another 500 Justin Amashes out there. I'm a particular fan of him. I want to wrap this show up, and this has been one of our greater shows here, with our favorite question, the Beach Brothers Show style question. What's good in Virginia? So, Dr. Lark, Mr. Dunbar, you know your way around the state. I would like for you guys to speak on the great parts of Virginia that you love, the great institutions. I know Dr. Lark is probably going to mention UVA basketball, businesses, etc.
Well,
And beer.
I'm a Virginia hillbilly. I'm a Virginia hillbilly by both birth and conviction. I'm from the southwestern part of the state. I will also point out that while I am a professor at the University of Virginia, a fine university, I am a Virginia Tech alumnus.
Ooh.
And so UVA's championship, and I have great regard for Coach Bennett, the coach of the University of Virginia's men's basketball team. But my sporting passions are actually in maroon and orange, Virginia Tech. So I hope that my UVA colleagues are not listening this evening. Unfortunately, I suspect
I'm a bit of a UVA fan. You guys took the football title back this year, so.
Yes, and I'm very proud of that. Thank you. I had a lot to do with it, as you can obviously tell.
I also noticed that you're a fan of beer, but Denver Ringelman has a bit of a distillery in Northern Virginia, and he's a bit of a Liberty Republican. That's another thing we might be able to harp on the greatness of, though it's a little unfortunate he might be leaving, the legislature.
Yes, well, he will. There is some talk about Mr. Riggleman. Mr. Riggleman has indicated that he shares a lot of libertarian sentiments. Actually, most people share a lot of libertarian sentiments. That there may be one or two issues with which they have substantial disagreements, but there's a pretty substantial libertarian core to, I think, most people. Mr. Riggleman, it'll be interesting to see what he wants to do. There has been some talk. He hasn't spoken to me about it, but there has been some talk as to whether or not he might be interested down the line in running as a libertarian candidate. I don't know whether he will actually pursue that, but there at least has been some chat about that.
Mr. Dunbar, tell us about your favorite aspects of the Old Dominion, some things you want to shout out.
Well, getting away from politics for a minute, which doesn't have a whole lot good to say about it. Actually, for the most part, Virginia election law is better than a lot of states. So I don't want to be too critical. There's a couple of holes that need filling, but for the most part, I like a lot of what Virginia has done election law wise. What I like most about living here, I live in Stafford, which is pretty close to Fredericksburg. And so I'm in a good spot. I got 2 hours to the mountains, 2 hours to the beach, and 2 hours to DC. I raised 4 kids here. I've been here 20 years. We've bred 4 kids through the public school system, and we go to the museums in DC, and there's always apple picking things to do. I love it here. I've lived in the cold weather, and I've lived in the warm weather, and I like being in the middle. I like it when it snows. It snows for a day. You go out and make a snowman with the kids, and then it melts. So that's enough for me.
Well, you guys were able to speak to the spirit of libertarianism tonight. You've been able to talk about what's good about the state and your optimism going forward. So I would like to thank you guys for coming on the Beach Brothers Show. Perhaps in 2021, as we look to re-expand into another election cycle, we could have not only you fine gentlemen back on, but also libertarian candidates.
Well, thank you for the invitation. Happy to be back. If anytime anyone wants to hear me open my big mouth, I'm available to do it.
Anytime. Well, again, thank you, gentlemen, for coming on. Any cool last words, Mr. Seko?
I tell you, man, this was a eye-opening experience in many ways. And it was really relevant because, as I stated, I was so disenfranchised and felt just so distanced from the options that I recently had for the POTUS level And so I said, hey, it would be great to get a third party, a third option. So I'm going to cast my vote for the third option. And that was the first time I've done that. So this has been eye-opening. And I really like the values. I've looked at libertarian. Yeah, Dr. Lark loves beer. he wanted to put that one more time. Well, salute to the beer and salute to Dr. Lark. And I want to thank D Nice or D Nick Dunbar for hanging out with us, Dr. Lark and Spike and his lovely wife. I'm glad we got a chance to show a picture of his lovely wife. Yes, I think we had a great night tonight. And we thank you for participating and watching the Beach Brothers Show. Share this video on Facebook, share it on Twitter, on Instagram, share the video, and let's all become a lot more informed about our political options. Last words.
I agree wholeheartedly. Let's look open-eyed into 2021.
This show was brought to you by Positive Vibes Incorporated, our consulting services. We do credit fixes. We do tax resolution. We lend private money and debt consolidation. So if you need some of these services, we're waiting here for you. Credit fixes, tax resolutions, private money, and debt consolidation. Make sure you call Positive Vibes Incorporated.